I am Harper, a 17-year-old high school student. Like many girls my age, I have a massive crush on a famous person. In my case, it is Rod. He is a famous teen actor with the most perfect face I have ever seen. You are probably wondering how a normal girl like me ended up backstage with a star. Well, my big sister Hannah is a professional makeup artist. She works for the star. I had to beg her for days to let me come with her. Finally, she said yes. There I was, sitting on a velvet couch in the green room. The room smelled like expensive hairspray and fancy coffee. My sister was busy applying foundation to Roger's face. I tried to act cool. I held up my phone and pretended to take selfie. But really, I was secretly taking photos of him. I looked at the new photos. His jawline was so sharp. His eyes were dreamy. Every girl in the world swoons over him. I am definitely his biggest fan. I just sat there and sighed. After a few minutes, Hannah had to step outside. That left only Roger and me in the room. My heart started racing. I knew I had to make the most of every second. I kept holding up my phone to get more shots of him. Suddenly, Roger stood up. He walked right over to me. Before I could react, he snatched the phone out of my hand. He looked at me with a cold expression. He asked me if I was taking pictures of him. I felt my face get very hot. I was totally busted. I started to stammer. I tried to think of a good excuse, but then Roger did something unexpected. He lifted my phone and took a perfect selfie of himself. He set it as my wallpaper and handed the phone back. He called me baby girl and told me to just ask him next time. Then he gave me a wink. I think I forgot how to breathe for a moment. After that heart-stopping moment in the green room, I followed Hannah to the studio where the talk show was being filmed. I sat backstage and watched Roger through the monitor. He was having a quick break while my sister touched up his makeup. He looked so perfect under the bright studio light. I thought to myself that he was definitely boyfriend material. I knew the girls at school would be so jealous if they knew me here. I pulled out my phone to text my friend about it. Suddenly, a notification popped up. It was a new story from Rod. He had posted a photo of the set and wrote that he was suddenly craving some orange juice. I felt like this was my chance to be his personal genie. I rushed out of the studio and ran around until I found a cup of fresh orange juice. I hurried back to give it to him. But when I got there, I saw his manager placing dozens of bottles of juice on a table. Other fans had the same idea as me. There was enough juice there to last him an entire year. I felt so defeated, I turned around to leave with my little cup. Suddenly, I bumped right into someone. I looked up and my heart nearly stopped. It was Roger. He smiled at me and looked at the cup in my hand. He asked if he could borrow my juice. I was speechless as I handed it to him. Later that night, I was back in my bedroom. My walls are covered in his posters and magazine covers. I even have a board that says I love Roger. I lay on my bed and stared at the paper cup he had given back to me. There were words written on the side in his handwriting. He had written down his phone number and told me to use it if I needed anything. I couldn't believe it. I wondered if a famous guy like him could actually be interested in a normal girl like me. I pinched my arm to make sure I wasn't dreaming. It really hurt, so I knew it was real. I spent the whole evening trying to write the perfect text message. I kept typing and deleting my words over and over. It was so hard to know what to say to a celebrity. Then disaster struck. I accidentally hit the send button before I was finished. I had only typed the word hi. I panicked and tried to delete it, but he was too fast. He replied immediately and said hi back. I realized there was no turning back. I took a deep breath and just went with the flow. We ended up talking for hours that night. After that, we started talking every single day. Then, one day, he surprised me completely. He told me he wanted us to go on a private date. I was so ecstatic. I wondered if this meant our relationship was finally moving to the next level. I was so nervous for our first date. We chose a very quiet, low-key diner because there were almost no customers there. I followed Roger's instructions and wore a cap and a mask to hide my face. I sat in a corner booth and waited. 1 hour passed, then another. I started to feel a heavy weight in my chest. I thought he had stood me up. I stood up to leave, feeling totally crushed. But then Roger burst through the door. He was sweaty and completely out of breath. He told me that he had a hard time losing his security guard. He had to run just to see me. I felt so touched. I realized he went to all that effort just for a normal girl like me. We didn't need a fancy restaurant or expensive gift. This simple diner felt like the most romantic place on earth because he was a real gentleman. He even cut my steak for me into small pieces. When he looked up and smiled, I felt like I was melting. I wished I could stay in that dream forever. Before we left, he gently slid a beautiful daisy bracelet onto my wrist. He leaned in and said that dating in secret was pretty exciting. I realized then that I was not just a fan anymore. We were officially a couple. The next day, I floated into school in the best mood ever. I was even singing on my way to class. My friend Alba jumped out and slapped my shoulder. She is a huge movie fan and was so excited about the new trailer for Roger's film. She told me she already booked a ticket for the early show. Then Sophie walked up. She is the vice president of Roger's fan club, and she is always so smug. She bragged about having a spot at the actual movie premiere. She asked if we were jealous of her power. I just stood there with dreamy eyes. In my head, I wanted to scream that I just had a romantic dinner date with the star himself. But of course, I had to keep my mouth shut. I just smiled and walked to my seat. Keeping this a secret was driving me crazy. I knew that dating an idol came with a big price. I didn't mind paying for it for the rest of my life, but it was hard because celebrities are always busy. They have almost no private time. We had to start getting very creative just to see each other for a few minutes. Since we had no private time, I had to come up with a risky plan to see Roger at his outdoor filming site. I decided to transform myself into my sister Hannah. I put on one of her favorite dresses and spent an hour doing heavy makeup to look older. I even styled my hair exactly like her. I hid behind a parked car and watched until the real Hannah finally drove away. I checked myself in the car mirror one last time. My hair and clothes were perfect. I felt like a master of disguise. I stepped out and started walking toward Roger's vanity van. The air was filled with the smell of diesel and dust from the film set. Suddenly, a female crew member called out to me. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. She called me Hannah and asked why I was still there. She looked at my fancy dress and asked what the special occasion was. I felt so awkward, but I tried to stay calm. I used a deeper, more mature voice to sound like my sister. I laughed it off and told her I just forgot some of my stuff. I said goodbye quickly and rushed behind the van before she could ask anything else. I leaned against the side of the van and took a deep breath. That was a very close call. It is a good thing that I look so much like my sister. I have also learned some great makeup tips from her over the years. It turned out to be a piece of cake to pretend to be Hannah. I giggled to myself because I actually made it onto the filming site without getting caught. I couldn't wait to surprise Roger. I stepped inside the van and saw Rod. He smiled and joked about whether I was really his adorable Harper. He laughed and mischievously pinched my cheeks. He was so impressed by my excellent disguise. But suddenly, he went completely silent. He listened to some footsteps coming toward us from outside. In a split second, he turned into a completely different person. His whole attitude changed. He pushed me away with a cold look. Then he poured his hot coffee right onto his expensive shoes. He started yelling at me at the top of his lungs. He asked me what on earth I was doing. He shouted about how much his shoes cost. Then he threw a box of tissues at me and ordered me to clean them. I stood there in total shock. I did not understand what just happened. I reached out my hand to ask if I had upset him. Suddenly, a woman swung my hand away with great force. It was Mrs. Walker, Roger's mom. She is the chairwoman of a big film production company. Everyone in the industry knows she is a very bossy and difficult lady. She yelled at me to take my filthy hand off her son. She checked on Roger and then glared at me with pure hatred. I could hear a buzzing sound of voices growing louder outside the van. I was terrified of causing a scene or any trouble. I kept my eyes on the ground and started apologizing frantically. Suddenly, someone grabbed my arm and pulled me away. It was Danielle, Roger's manager. Danielle led me away to a bench under a large tree. The shade felt cool against my burning face. She handed me a paper cup of warm coffee to help me calm down. She told me not to be too bothered by how Roger acted. He was just under a lot of stress from his work. Then she surprised me by saying she was actually Roger's older sister. They were super close, so she understood him better than anyone else. I was shocked. I told her I had no idea Roger even had an older sister. Danielle just laughed softly. She told me that she definitely knew about me. It was obvious because every time Roger saw me, his eyes filled with pure happiness. I started to stutter, trying to explain our relationship, but Danielle just gave me a friendly wink. She told me I didn't have to say a word. She promised to keep our love story a complete secret. I just smiled shyly and felt my cheeks turn bright red. It turned out that Danielle already knew everything. She had stayed quick because she didn't want to embarrass. She was so kind that she even drove me all the way home. We exchanged phone numbers before I got out of the car. Since Roger was being very quiet and not responding to my messages, it was nice to have Danielle to talk to. She was incredibly supportive of our relationship. She even started keeping me up to date with Roger's busy schedule so I wouldn't feel so alone. A whole week passed after that day at the film set, and I heard nothing from Roger. There were no messages and not a single phone call. I even tried texting the new phone number Danielle gave me, but still, I got absolutely nothing. I sat in class and stared at the selfie Roger took on my phone. Outside the window, I saw other couples walking together and showing affection. I felt a heavy sigh escape my lips. Sometimes I really wondered if I even had a boyfriend. I just wanted to experience a normal relationship like everyone else. Suddenly, Sophie appeared out of nowhere and snatched my phone right out of my hand. She spoke with a sarcastic tone and told me to stop wasting my time fantasizing about a guy so far out of my league. She turned to her two friends and said it was tragic because Roger now had a real girlfriend and had betrayed all his fans. My heart skipped a beat. I asked myself what she meant by a girlfriend. I quickly grabbed my phone back and went online. I saw a photo of Roger with a hot singer named Jessica. They looked very cozy and intimate backstage together. I felt a surge of anger and hurt. I wondered if he was ghosting me just to be with her. I felt like my heart was going to burst into flames from the jealousy. I immediately sent a message to Danielle to find out the truth. She replied almost instantly. She complained that she was also having a massive headache because of Jessica. She told me it was all just a dirty PR trick to promote Jessica's new album. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. It was just a silly rumor after all. Danielle also explained why Roger hadn't contacted me. He had been incredibly busy filming a new movie all the way in Paris. She told me he would be back soon for a small meet and greet event downtown. Danielle suggested that I should show up there to surprise him. She even promised to clear his schedule for that day so we could finally go on a real date after the event. I felt so happy. Danielle really was a wonderful person for helping us stay together. Finally, the day of the meet and greet arrived. I went to the event venue downtown. Roger was sitting at a long table, signing autographs and chatting with a long line of fans. I had disguised myself so perfectly with a hat and glasses that I was sure he wouldn't recognize me. I just kept smiling, thinking about how surprised he would be when it was my turn. I watched him from a distance. He was taking selfies with fans and putting his arm around their shoulders or waist. To be honest, I didn't really like seeing my man giving out air kisses and hugs to other girls, but I told myself that it was just his job. I tried to be an understanding girlfriend. After all, I used to fall for those same sweet gestures when I was just a fan. Then a girl in the crowd shouted out a question. She asked if any of the dating rumors about him were actually true. I held my breath, waiting for his answer. Roger looked at the crowd and said he thought it was better to just focus on his work and his fans. He called the fans his true supporters, unlike all the girls out there who only approach me for fame and money. He even made a heart shape with his fingers for the crowd. I stood there in total shock. I asked myself if he really saw me as just another girl chasing clout. The room felt suddenly very small. The loud cheering and howling of the fans made me feel like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stay in that room for another second. I stood up and ran out the door as fast as my legs could carry me. I was sobbing uncontrollably as I reached the sidewalk. I kept thinking about what he said and how he truly felt about our relationship all this time. My vision was blurry from the tears. Suddenly, a black car pulled up right in front of me. The window rolled down and I saw Danielle inside. She signaled for me to get into the car quickly. I climbed into the car and Danielle looked at me with a lot of sympathy. She told me she knew how hard it was to love a celebrity. She explained that from a fan's perspective, those sweet words were just what they wanted to hear. She said Roger obviously couldn't talk about his real relationship in public. But then, she gave me a look that changed everything. She told me that while he couldn't speak up, I certainly could. I asked her what she meant by that. She told me there was nothing wrong with our love. She suggested there were plenty of ways to express it discreetly, and gave me another wink. Her words really got me thinking. I thought about how Sophie teased me every day for just dreaming about an idol. I wanted to prove our relationship was real. I felt like I had the right to show off my love. So I picked my favorite picture from one of our dates. I was leaning on Roger's shoulder and holding a bouquet to hide part of my face. I posted it on my Instagram to finally pour my heart out. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Roger. It was not a sweet message. He was incredibly angry. He asked me why I broke our promise and why I disclosed our relationship. He said things were a complete mess now. He sent me a link to a tweet from an account called Cancel Roger. I clicked it and my heart sank. It was my photo, but the title said Roger was suspected of dating someone 10 years older than him. I realized they had mistaken me for my sister Hannah. I felt a wave of panic. Luckily, Hannah was still on vacation and hadn't seen the news yet. I knew I had to fix this before she came back, or she would absolutely kill me. I tried calling and texting both Roger and Danielle, but I got no response at all. I didn't know what to do. Then I remembered that Roger was having a big press conference for his new movie today. I decided to go there and try to talk to him directly to explain everything. I grabbed Hannah's backstage pass and hurried into the building. I was desperate to find Roger before the press conference started. I reached the artist's waiting room and saw the door was slightly open. I stopped when I heard voices inside. It wasn't Rod. It was his mother, Mrs. Walker, talking to her staff. She sounded furious. She ordered them to clean up the scandal immediately so it wouldn't affect the movie. She called my sister a social climber and said Hannah was using tricks to take advantage of Rod. Then she threatened to ruin Hannah's entire career. I couldn't let my sister take the blame for my mistake. I felt a surge of courage and rushed into the room. I begged Mrs. Walker not to do anything to Hannah. I told her that it wasn't my sister in that photo. I confessed that it was me all along. I even told her that Roger and I were in love. Suddenly, a cold voice spoke from behind me. I spun around and saw Roger standing there. He looked at me with total indifference. He told me to stop making a fool of myself. He never actually loved me. He turned to Mrs. Walker and apologized to her. He would handle the situation himself. I felt like the floor was disappearing beneath my feet. I really thought he was different from other celebrities. It turned out he was just another jerk who used his fame to flirt with girls for fun. I didn't want to hear another word from him. I gathered all my strength and shouted that we were officially over. Then I turned around and sprinted out of the room as fast as I could. A few days passed, and I felt like a ghost walking through the school hallways. I sat in class completely zoned out. My thoughts kept wandering back to that that horrible day at the press conference. Meanwhile, the internet was exploding. That same account, a cancel Roger, was posting more videos every hour. They showed Roger being incredibly arrogant and rude. One video even showed him throwing the tissue box at me and telling me to wipe his shoe. Another one caught him saying he was just using me for fun. I watched the clips on my phone with a heavy heart. Part of me thought it served him right for being such a jerk. But then, a weird thought popped into my head. I remembered those moments clearly. There were almost no people around when those things happened. I started to wonder who could have possibly filmed those videos from such close angles. Suddenly, a loud ringing sound brought me back to reality. Sophie was doing a presentation, and her laptop was connected to the big classroom projector. A Twitter notification suddenly popped up on the huge screen for everyone to see. My heart stopped when I read the handle. The notification was for the account a cancel Roger. I stared at the screen in total disbelief. I realized right then that the person behind the most famous hate account on the internet was sitting right in front of me. Sophie was the one posting all those private videos. I felt a cold chill run down my spine as I put the pieces together. I was back in my room later that evening, and the internet was still on fire. Everywhere I looked, fans were still furious with Rod. I scrolled through endless articles and saw thousands of comments from people who wanted to cancel his entire career. There was even a blurry photo of him going to a bar and getting drunk the night before his big apology press conference. I was still so mad at him for what he said, but I realized I couldn't just switch off my feelings. My heart was still pulling me toward him. I decided to take an Uber to that bar to find. When I got there, the big security guard at the front looked at me and immediately stopped me because I was too young. I started walking around the building, trying to find a way to sneak inside. That's when I saw a familiar figure. It was Roger. He was sitting all alone on the cold concrete steps of the bar's back door. He looked exhausted. I walked up to him and asked if he was okay. I told him I would call Danielle to come pick him up. Roger looked up at me and begged me not to. He said he was just so tired of having bodyguards and managers following him every single second of the day. He just wanted to be alone for once. He reached out and grabbed my hand. He looked me right in the eyes and apologized for hurting me. He told me that everything between us was actually real and that I should know he truly did love me. He explained that he only said those mean things because he was terrified that his mom would harm me if she knew the truth. I sat down next to him on the step. I asked him why he was so afraid of his own mother. He dropped a bombshell on me. He told me that Mrs. Walker wasn't his biological mom. She had adopted him when he was 11 just because she saw how talented he was at acting. Since that day, she had treated him like nothing more than a machine to make money for her. He told me how his love for acting was being destroyed by the pressure of being a celebrity. He also knew someone was behind all the scandals, and it was breaking him. I told him that I actually knew exactly who was behind everything. I told him to show up at his press conference just like he planned, and I promised him that I would take care of the rest. Finally, the day of the press conference arrived. The room was packed with reporters. I stood in the back watching Roger as he stood at the podium. He finished his apology for the scandals. I pushed through the crowd and walked straight up to the stage to address everyone. I told the crowd that all the rumors were fake. I explained that I was the actual girl in those videos. Then I dropped the biggest truth of all. I told everyone that the person who filmed and edited those clips to make Roger look bad was none other than his own manager and sister, Danielle. I pointed directly at her. I heard a huge gasp go through the room, and suddenly every camera lens shifted toward her shocked face. Danielle tried to act innocent. She shouted that it was all slander and claimed I had no proof. I just smiled and held up my phone. I played a video recording I had made earlier. See, on the day of her presentation, Sophie had accidentally revealed her secret Twitter account, which was the famous cancel Roger handle. I had confronted her immediately and told her she could be sued for defamation. In my recording, a terrified Sophie admitted everything. She confessed that she was blinded by jealousy when she heard Roger had a girlfriend, so she listened to Danielle. Since Danielle was his manager, Sophie believed the videos were real and thought she was doing the right thing for the fans. When Danielle saw the video, she finally snapped. She admitted it was her. She yelled that she needed to show their mom that Roger wasn't special. She confessed to using our relationship just to ruin his career so that Mrs. Walker would finally notice her instead. It was a huge twist that nobody expected. The true intentions of Mrs. Walker and Danielle were exposed for the whole world to see. Roger was cleared of all the scandals, and his fans rushed back to support him. He even got a new manager who is actually a nice person. Best of all, they have no problem with us dating publicly. I still get a little giddy thinking about it. As for my sister Hannah, she came back from her trip and found out she was supposedly dating one of her clients. She wasn't very happy about the drama at first, but now she has more bookings than ever before. She actually has me to thank for being in such high demand. Looking back on everything, I learned a really deep lesson. I used to think being a celebrity meant having a perfect, easy life, but now I know that everyone has their own struggles, no matter how famous they are. I realized that real love is about protecting each other, even when things get messy. But most importantly, I learned that you should never judge a book by its cover, or a star by their headline. Sometimes the person who seems to have it all is the one who needs the most kindness.